Thank you all so much for joining us for the Debt Management Workshop. Joining us today is Samson Chio. Samson is a UNLV alumni and has obtained numerous financial credentials, including the CFA, CMA, CPA, to name just a few of the ones that he has. And he's joining us here today to discuss identifying, managing, and reducing debt so it can help us make better financial decisions in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to him to get us started.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Nav. So let me actually share my screen so we can start. Let me do that. Hopefully you guys can see it. If not, let me know. So today we're gonna talk about that. Of course, first of all, good evening and welcome. And hope you guys enjoying the last few days of code before we becoming too hard. So today we're gonna talk about that. And I know a lot of you don't want to talk about it because that is such a sensitive topic. Which usually means that you owe money. But at some point, I believe most of you would encounter it. So it's better to maybe understand it. Just a little bit disclosures here. Everything that I talk about today is just an opinion of myself, and they don't represent any opinions or beliefs of other companies or other people. So let's get into it. So I was actually talking to a lot of you last year. I know the students have changed. Some of you might have graduated. And so on the top left, that was me. I think, wow, you can't really see me right there. And so what changed? I went ahead and got myself a new webcam. So hopefully this time I'm a little more clear. And okay, let's go through some housekeeping topics. Here is the table of contents. We're going to first talk about the US history and why we use debt. Next, we're going to talk about the types of debt. And then we'll go into and talk about some of the debt management techniques, and then how you manage that. And if we can manage it, we can pay off what happened. And lastly, I'm going to give you guys a few useful resources and that can hopefully help you to manage your budget, that, and understand what's happening in the world. So before we do that, talk about that, let's hear what a 7-year-old would think of that. What now?
Hi, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sammy. I am 7 years old.
Hi, Sammy. So, can you tell me a little bit about debt?
Debt is money that you owe to the person that lended the money to you.
Okay. So, do you think debt is good or bad?
Debt is bad because you have to pay it off if it gets too much, or sometimes you can't even pay it off because it's too much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sammy.
Great. So we learned about that from a 7-year-old, and what she thinks is bad. And to be honest, I was gonna make it like a 40-minute video, so I didn't have to do much, but it didn't work out that way. But what it's interesting to see what a child thinks about that, and they think it's a bad thing because it usually means you're gonna owe money. In most cases, that might be true. So let's now talk about the history of that. US actually has long history of that since the inception of the independence. And this graph, you will see what US has as in debt as a percentage of GDP throughout from 1790 to 2020. Why do we have to show as a percentage of GDP? Why don't we just put money in there? It was because of inflation. All we have is if we didn't have the percentage of GDP, what we're seeing is very low amount of debt and very large amount of debt at the end, and that doesn't really represent how much debt we are having. So as using a percent of GDP, GDP is basically how much income the whole US is generating. So let me first talk about this important point. everything in the business world actually can be boiled down into income, like how much you earn, expenses, how much you spend, and what's left over is the profit or losses. If you make more income, you have profit. If you make less income than your expenses, you're going to have a loss. And that's all the questions in the business world it's about, whether it's investment banking, manufacturing, fast food restaurants. This is the main question everyone's asking. So using a percent of GDP would give you a better idea how much debt US is actually carrying. At first, it's about 30% of debt. That's about $75 million. And then when you look at the 1835, you will see, is that zero? Or you think, is that an error? I can tell you that's not an error. In 1835, under Andrew Jackson's presidency, he decided to pay off debt, and we actually did it. We pay off debt in 1835. There was no debt in the US. And then later on, it also climbed up again, right? Because of all the wars, Civil War, World War One, World War Two, and then other than that is the depressions or the recessions that we have. 2008, we decided to help those too big to fail companies, and then in COVID, of course, we give out a lot of stimulus and incentives to companies. And then next, we would like to talk about all that compared to the other countries. And this is not just random countries. These are the top 20 countries that has the most debt. Where, of course, US is number one, and then followed by Japan and China. So US has 31 trillion of debt, and it's a little bit more at this point. And then look at the other countries. They all have far less debt. And let's put this in a different perspective. Let me actually take out Japan and China, and I'm going to add the other 17 countries together from France to Greece and look at their debt. Their debt for the 17 countries only add up to 26 trillion, and we are at 31 trillion at this point. So you can tell how much that US actually has. So all of you that has debt is not just about yourself. US actually carrying a lot of debt at this point. And then the next question you may ask, why can't we just print money to pay off debt, right? It's easy, just print money and pay off debt. And let me give you a true story. And this is happened in about 2006 to around 2010 time for a country called Zimbabwe. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So the president at that time, they decided just print money to pay off debt easy, right? And their peak inflation actually went to 89.7, and it's not just 89.7, it's 89.7 plus 21.0%, and that's how much inflation that they had by printing money to pay off debt. Basically, things are costing double every day. To put things in a different perspective, give you more context, let's look at 1993, their currency value. This is a $20 bill that they have. It might be one of the highest denomination that they have. In 2006, they came up with a $100,000 bill, which is still not too bad. It's bearable. In 2008, they have a $100 billion bill. And 2009, they had introduced a $100 trillion bill. And that's how bad the inflation is. Imagine that you have a $100 trillion US bill. What would you do, right? And so to tell you how much it's worth right now, the $100 trillion bill in Zimbabwe is worth about 40 cents of US dollars. And that, of course, everything went downhill and it was really bad. So we can't print money to pay off debt. Next, we're going to talk about the personal side. And why do we have that? There's nothing better to put in this way is just humans are greedy. We always want more and more. If we don't have that, how can I pay for the internet? If I don't have that, how do I pay for the books in college? How do I pay for dinners, for my expensive dinners that I'm with my girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse? And lastly, how do I pay that $10,000 Taylor Swift concert ticket? So we always kind of want more and more. And secondly, we are everyone's life is finite, right? We want things now than later. And because we only have finite life, we want things earlier than later. And what's the best way to get things now? Use that because it's the money that you can have and use it now, but you just have to pay off later. Next is number one rule. Some people mention that is to not care about others, right? Just care about yourself. But the society doesn't form us that way, and the society is structured in a way that we always have to care about other people's feeling. We have to respect others. Imagine this, right? Next time when you go to an interview, you're likely gonna get this question: why do you want to work for this company? Try this answer. You- to be honest, I don't care about you or your company. I just want a job. Again, I don't give a damn about you or your company. I just want a job. How likely you're gonna get that job, right? And think about the last time that you feel like being respect. People like to be respect. When was it? Why? Was it because of new iPhone that you had? Was it because that something you buy expensive gift to others? And was it a new car that you have, maybe an expensive trip that you vacation that you have, you are there to talk about and people want to hear about it. So all these things sometimes just involve money. Again, to have money, it's the fastest way is just to use debt. Next, we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Most people might have heard of it. So people would try to fulfill the bottom tier of the hierarchy, right, which is food. Then you need to have food and water to survive. And then next, you want something where secure to stay, where it's housed. And then you want to build relationships with friends, family. And the next two is the esteem needs and self actualization. To be honest, I don't know the difference, too much difference between the two. Maybe I'm not there yet, but just knowing that we as a human, we always want more. Let's look at this the different way. This is what the government calls a poverty line. What does poverty line means? That means you're poor, you can't really live with that amount of money, and it's about $1,000 a month. So if you are earning below $1,000 a month, you are considered poor in the U.S. But let's look at these countries. This is the median wage that they're earning. In other countries, below $300. Cuba is only earning $51 a month. People in there, and we're not talking about small amount of people here. We're talking about 2.1 billion people here. In the whole world, it's only 7.8 billion. This 27% of people are living with only less than $300 a month. So we have to consider how lucky we are. But since we're lucky, we also kind of want more. I'm sure you guys have saw grasshoppers, right? This is an extreme example. And sometimes for me, I see a lot, and you were just seeing them staring at things. And sometimes I try to put myself in their situation to think about what they are thinking about. And here is a head scratching grasshopper. And I'm telling you, I can assure you that he's not thinking what movie to watch tonight. He's just thinking where is his next meal. So it's it depending what stage you are, how much income you have, what you need, you're only wanting something in that stage. And a lot of people outside don't have money, they just want enough food. But in the US, since we have abundant of resources, we have a lot of income, people want more and more and always think we have a lot of power here. And that's what encouraged us to use debt because we want more things to be possessed by us. Next, we're getting to talk about the types of debt. So these are the most common and probably majority of the household debt and personal debt. What category it belongs to? It's mortgage, and then we have student loans, auto loans, credit card. One thing to know about card here is that it's usually accompanied with very high interest rate. We're going to talk about the impacts later here. And then next we have medical debt. Many of you may not have it at this point. It's usually very unpredicted. But however, they can be very large. And that's why it's actually accounting for more than half of the bankruptcy cases is because of the medical bills. And then lastly is personal debt. And then these are size of the debt in the pie chart. And you can see on a mortgage, it accounts about 71%, more than 71% of the debt. And the size of the personal debt is about 15 trillion. This is 2021 data. I think now we're at a 16.5 trillion dollars in debt. And then the second largest debt of the personal one is the student loan, 10.7%, 1.6 trillion, followed by auto loan, 9.7%. And then next in line is the credit card. I know credit card is being used a lot. You hear about credit card all the time, but they only add up to about $787 billion. Still very large. We use a lot, but it's not as big when you compare to other category of debt. And then lastly, other is just only accounting for about 3%. And first, let's get into mortgage loan. I can kind of classify these into two categories. One's fixed, one's variable. Fixed means the interest rate is going to stay the same throughout the term of the loan, and they don't change. And then variable, which is another name for adjustable rate mortgage. These interest rate can be adjusted later throughout the loan, and I would highly suggest, and I would try to urge you guys not to take this variable loan. And that's what's gonna kill you. Example in 2008, right? Because people have high adjustable rate loan from 5% interest to 15%, and that the mortgage amount that you're paying can triple. Your mortgage amount is just not going to base on the interest rate outside. However, even though majority of it is based on that, you still based on your credibility. When your credibility goes down, your interest rate will also go up. So that rate adjustment is not just from the market rate, it can be from various sources. And again, don't take on adjustable rate loan. You're taking so much risk there. Regardless of incentive, just don't do it. And then next, up to this point, I have a negative view on the debt, right? And the kids think the debt is bad, or we think about debt is bad because all these things that we have to pay back. But that actually can be used to your advantage. There's two types of debt, good debt and bad debt. Again, I want to emphasize the point here is the income and expenses. If the interest that you're paying can generate more income for you, that's actually a good debt, right? And mortgage can be one of the good debt here. Let me show you example. So here, hopefully you guys can see it.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the first scenario. This is like, oh, a person saying, I'm not going to take any debt. I'm just going to use my savings to buy the house. And here, Wall 14, these are the house prices. I took it. This is actually Reno's house prices from 2005 and 2020. There's a median house price. Now let's make this example. You're earning 50,000 in 2005. How much raise you think you can get? Maybe 5%. So that means from 2005 of 50,000 in 2022, you're actually earning about 115,000 a year. How much are you going to save? Let's say 20%. So the orange line here is the house price. The blue line here is how much you're saving. And at the bottom bars these are the gaps that between your saving and the house price. That means if there's a gap that means you cannot buy a house, right? Because your savings didn't surpass that house price. Look at these two lines. They never cross each other. So that means you never gonna get a house throughout this year if you just decided to use cash to buy a house. And the gap also becomes bigger, which means even though your wage is going up, it becomes harder and harder for you to buy a house. Let's look at the next example. Same story, 50,000 salary, 5% raise. You want to save 20%. Now, let's say I actually want to buy a house maybe in 2010, and then you loan it for 15 years. Interest rate is about 3% that time maybe. And then the down payment, let's say you want to pay 10% down. So look at this. This is the year that you decided to buy the house. You have the mortgage, and then this is down payment that you're paying. This is the total interest you're going to pay throughout the term of the loan. I'm not considering all the time value money here. This is just how much debt in total you're going to bear. So you're down about 39,000. But look at what happened after. The house prices went up and you're going to build your equity. That equity is that if you decide to sell the house, that's money that you're going to have even after paying the debt. So you're going to have about 200,000 if you decide to buy a house, take out a loan and buy the house earlier, you're going to actually earn a lot of money. That's what investments in real estate is about, is where should I buy the house? And then how, with the increase in house prices, people are earning a lot of money. So this, as you can see, that equity is actually building up. And this is about timing, right? Of course, you don't want to buy a house now, and I cannot tell you whether the house price is too high. I think it's too high, but I might be wrong. They can go up or down. You can never predict the market. But the point here is sometimes that can be good, can help you to build equity actually. And plus, you're going to have a house in 2011 that you have to live for 10 years. And in other case, I don't know when you can actually buy a house. So let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about the personal debt. And then next is student loans. For student loans, you guys might be more expert than I do. I didn't have student loan when I went to college. Which might actually be a bad thing. So for student loans, there are two types: is federal and private. Federal is there is subsidized, unsubsidized. Subsidized means some interest might be forgiven, right? They might pause the interest at some point, and then there was a direct plus. Maybe that's for more professional or more higher education students. And next, let's get into credit card debt. Again, the interest rates can be very high. And few things to remember here, very important. You pay off the balance on time. If you don't, at least pay the minimum payment due, because if you don't do these two things, you're going to have late fee, you're going to have interest. If you pay the minimum amount, you will have interest, but not the late fee. Late fee, they're going to charge you every month, depending on the card, and that can add up for sure. So lastly, shop around for credit cards. What you need to find, just two things: low interest rates and low fees. And if that's the case, that's the credit card that you're going to have. On the left side, here's some credit cards that they recommend, the best ones. So you can see I look for the interest rate. The fees might be also on the left side, it's all zero fees. So these might be credit cards that if you want to get one, try to consider them. And then next is medical, right? I said medical is going to be unpredictable and very large. Look at the top 5 average medical procedure costs. And the intestinal transplantation can cost you about $1.1 million. I know insurance, you guys have insurance and they cover most of it, but there are also insurance that only cover part of it. What happens if they cover 90% of it, which is very good insurance, but for a $1.1 million cost, you still need to pay about $110,000. Can you pay that right now? If you can, that's the problem, because you're going to end up with a lot of debt. So next, we're going to talk about personal debt. For personal debt, kind of one of the true story in my experience. When I went to high school when I was 10th grade, one of my friends decided to lend the other friend a dollar, just a dollar, right? And what happened after that is during every break, my friend would actually stop in the other friend's classroom in front of it and ask for the dollar back. And of course, it never happened, but they spend a lot of time just keep asking money back. So sometimes when you lend money out, you have to consider how likely you're going to get the money back. And that's what the bank's thinking. That's what the lending company is thinking. Is how likely you're going to get that money back to them. If it's not likely, they're going to charge you really high interest rates. And that's why if you have a low credit score, your interest rate is going to be a lot higher than the counterparts. And what are the pros for the personal debt? As we using my friend's example, you don't have to qualify, usually very low qualification. My friend never asked the other friend what your credit score is. And the other thing is you have fast access to the fund. If you want $10, okay, here's $10. I'm just going to give you without a lot of process approval time. And sometimes they can be flexible too. Talk to your agency because they can also work a few things around, determine when you want to pay the debt back, what's the payments between the time, and that's when they can be flexible. What are cons, of course, it can be very high fees, and then also they can come with very high interest rates. The below is the news came out about 12 days ago. A Henderson councilman kind of charged people 700% of interest. What does 700% mean? 700% means if you borrow $100, you need to pay $700 in interest alone for the year. So that's crazy, right? But people use different marketing techniques. And what they would say, they might say something like this. Hey, if you borrow $100 from us, you're only paying $2 a day in interest. That doesn't sound a lot, $2, but they do add up to over $700 in interest in the year. So be careful with the marketing. And marketing, again, then they are not trying to, they in a way trying to get you to be knowledgeable, but also the main goal is to get you to buy the product. So be careful with, and then next we're going to talk about the debt management techniques, some of the techniques that I think is going to be useful to avoid, eliminate, minimize, or manage debt. First of all, just say no. And that's within your rights. Sometimes it just be disciplined. And if you have to buy expensive gift, maybe try to buy something cheaper. If you go to expensive dinner, maybe consider cooking at home. And maybe if you want to buy the $10,000 Taylor Swift concert ticket, maybe buy next time when you have the money. And things can you have to sacrifice. If you have that, if you don't, things just add up, and at some point, there's no way back. So remember, sometimes it's better to just say no. And then next, we're going to talk about you have to do a budget, right? Budget. What budget does is not kind of fancy thing. It's just allow you to see what you are earning, right? Remember what you earn and what you're spending and see if they balance. If not, you have to balance that. And also build an emergency fund. A lot of places will recommend 6 months. And it really helps, right? Imagine nowadays a lot of people get laid off, especially the big tech companies. If they don't have money saved, um, then they're gonna get really stressful. The stress can come from not having a job, have to pay rent, and sometimes the also not have enough food, uh, money to pay for the food. And you can imagine how stressful that situation is. But if you have 6 months expense saved, then you can still have something to rely on while finding another job. And let's look at again, budget template doesn't have to be complicated. Let's see a template that I built. Hopefully this works. If not, we have to do the same process again. Yeah. So I have to do the process again. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see it. So I want to kind of work with you guys. There has nothing on there by purpose. I just want to work with you guys how to use this budget template. So let's say, oh, you are being a cook, right? How much you earn? $2,000. And here you can, what's this? This is an income for sure. And then now, let's say you're also a waiter, right? You earn, let's say 1,500 a month. And then I can put this as income. Okay, let's get into the expense part. What's the much major expense? Definitely rent. How much rent is nowadays? I believe is like upper 1,500, right? So I'm gonna put this expense. For expenses, you also have to put whether it's essential or non-essential. And I definitely believe this is essential. And then groceries, right? Food and beverage, this is also essential. You probably spend, let's say, 500 a month. And I would put expenses. I would put this essential. And then what's the other one? Electricity, internet, cell phone. Let's put just, I call this electricity and others, right? Very essential. Let's say $500 a month. So you can put expenses and then essential. So what are the other expenses? Now let's get into a little bit about non-essential ones. Maybe coffee, right? Everyone likes coffee. You probably spend maybe $100 a month on coffee. That's on the low side, by the way. So, and then also maybe traveling. Maybe you spend $300 a month on traveling. And okay, let's say now you forget about the one of the essential expenses, right? Order doesn't matter. Gas, definitely. So you probably spend maybe $200 a month on gas. So you're just gonna put it back and say, oh, this is essential. They would just reorganize it for you. And then lastly, dinner, right? You have like outside dinner. Maybe this is $300 a month. Got expenses, and this is non-essential. Okay, let's say you finish at this point. Remember, you have to be complete. So income and then total expenses is calculating up. And on the non-essential, some of things are not calculating because we haven't typed if things are you want to keep or not. Let's say, oh, I want to keep everything. I just want to do everything here. So you can see because of your goal, it's not feasible. So you have to change some of the non-essential expenses. Let's see from the top. So you're earning 3,500, your essential expenses 2,700. Remember the phrase that people always mention about save before you spend. But I would say it's not totally true. You have to save after all the essential expenses. So this is what you can save after your all the essential expenses. You have saved 800. Let's say you want to save 500. Okay, now that means you only have $300 to spend on non-essential expenses. You are spending 700 on it. So let's change it. We have to change it. Oh, traveling, let's not do it, right? If we want to save, maybe you have to sacrifice the traveling. You're still $100 short. So let's maybe change dinner. Oh, 300 is expensive. I'm going to just spend half of it. Okay, now you have some surplus, and that is what I call a balanced budget. You have $50 more. You can definitely add it to your savings. Let's go to the P&L summary. So this summary, it just gives you what your income is, what your expenses is, and then what's left, and so what your savings is going to be. So with all this, you can print it out and you can keep it every month and kind of keep yourself on track for the budget. Okay, we're done here. So next, okay, it's good that they allow us to go back. Remember, medical expenses can be unpredictable and very large in nature. So what we can do, and sometimes I think it's good to buy insurance. And people might say, oh, insurance, they are earning money from us. To, the truth is, they're trying to get money from you. There's no free lunch. They're definitely trying to earn money from you, but they do have the power to do so. And I'm going to show you why. So let me go just straight to the template to show you. So here's the insurance company versus individual, like you want to do it on your own template that I built. And first, let's say the insurance company is trying to insure a disease, and that disease will cost 5,000 to cure. And then how many policy holders do you think they can get? They can definitely get a lot, right? Let's say 100,000, and they're gonna charge $100 million premium. Just think about, stop at this point. $100 premium can protect you from $5,000 cost. In your mind, you think, wow, that's totally worth it, right? That's why people also sometimes they would want to buy insurance. That's what the occurrence of the instances, let's say it's 1,000, about 1%. So here's is how much money they're earning. $10 million in revenue, just 100,000 times the $100 in premium. And how much they're going to pay out? They're going to pay about 1,000 occurrences for $5,000 each. That's 5 million. And there might be other costs, commissions, labor, offices, rent, and they're earning $4 million in profit. But let's say if they're wrong, right? There's another 200 people actually get that disease as well. And now their profit went from $4 million to 3 million. They're still earning profit, and they can afford to be a little bit wrong. Okay, let's say now here's the case that you talk to yourself, why do I have to rely on insurance? I can do it myself. I know 20 people that are very healthy, my friends, family, and whoever there is, they're very healthy. And I'm gonna charge them, I'm gonna beat the insurance company. I'm gonna charge them $90 each. Still $5,000 payout each. Let's say you believe they're very healthy, nothing's gonna happen. So you are keeping $1,800 a year. Free money, right? Very lucrative business. But let's say you're wrong. Actually, one person gets it, that disease. Suddenly you're upside down. You are down by $3,200. So that's why insurance had the power and you don't. Let's say even two people get the disease. Now you're even downward, and it's really hard for you to recover. That's why sometimes I think it's a good idea also to have insurance, just protect you from a downside. Remember, I talked about you have finite life, right? If you don't protect from your downside, let's say you are broke, it takes you years to build back, and part of your life is already lost in rebuilding it. So I would say um, they're earning money from you, but definitely if there's things that you want to protect your downside against, you should go find some insurance. Next is the debt consolidations and also seek professional help. How do we consolidate things? We just put things together, right? Remember the page that I showed you the best credit card? They also mention balance transfer. What balance transfer is, you just take other debt that you have, other credit cards debt, and put it in just their card, right? They offer 0% APR. Very sounds amazing. What they don't tell you is they're going to charge you. The charge is usually between 3 to 5%. So they're going to charge you 3 to 5% of the balance for you to move the balance over. But again, you give you low interest rate. And they have all the rights to do that, and they wanted your business. That's one way of doing that. But again, when you do that, remember you have to be disciplined. You have to sacrifice trying to pay off the debt first. Not like if I got this transfer and you suddenly think, oh, I have all the money I can have again, and you're gonna go buy things. This just gonna make the situation worse and worse. Remember, be disciplined and pay off the debt if you have any right now. And then next, of course, is professional help. There's companies down there, as I have on these listed here, that you can talk to them. They have people that can help you to devise a plan, how to pay off the debt, and they're not going to take your debt away, to be honest, like for sure. That just follow you, but they're going to find a way to help you to solve the problem. They would give you a plan to how to pay off and help you to realize how much you're owing. Of course, you can talk to a CPA, a CFP, any financial advisors. Just remember, nothing is free. You need to pay a fee for it. You need to pay some cost, but these people might end up helping you. What would help you? Okay, at this point, you think, hey, I've done everything, but I still couldn't pay off my debt. What happened? Then you have to go to the bankruptcy. And there's two bankruptcy type. One's Chapter 7, one's Chapter 13. Chapter 7 means that if someone's going to take things away from you and they're going to sell those things for the market value to pay the creditor, right? The creditor still wants something back. And that's kind of the worst case scenario. And that's the situation that you think no way you're going to pay off the debt, and it's better just losing everything. So whatever that you cannot pay off, it will be forgiven. Also, there's some exception to it, right? They're not going to take away your house. They're not going to take away your clothes. They let you keep something that you can keep to survive at least. And then other than that, we have a Chapter 13. And Chapter 13, in my opinion, it's a better route. What happened is they're going to work, the creditor is going to work with you. They're going to come up with a plan with you. And because you're still earning money, they will come up with a plan and to help you to pay off the debt. So what they would do is just going to be lowering the interest or maybe take off some balances so that you will have the ability to pay off the debt again in the future. And remember, it seems so good, too good to be true, and they are. There's cons of using bankruptcy as a protection, because bankruptcy record can stay in for 7 years. So you will be very hard for you to build a credit again. And also finding a job is going to be tough because employer do look at those records and say, oh, this person make a bad judgment in the past. And that would definitely hurt your chances of finding a job. And also some debts cannot be taken away. These would be alimony, child support, maybe some kind of student loans, and those would just follow you forever. So it doesn't solve all the problem, but if nothing can be done, these is the places that you have to go. It's just to file bankruptcy. Next, I'm going to give you a few useful resources. The first one is just a few apps that I found. People like cell phone, right? So these are the apps that you can use to help you manage that, manage your budget and pay off. And all this is just, to me, different layouts and different logic, and they're trying to get you to use that. Of course, they want to earn money off you. And some of these apps would link to your checking account, right? They will round your spending, save those money, or they would just look at how much you owe, how much you have, and link to credit card debt and compare and give you a plan of paying off. So even though I put some of these, it's going to cost you money per month. They do have trial period, and I would say go try it out. If you don't like it, just delete it and move on to something else. Next, I found a really cool website. I didn't know about this before. Maybe some of you might already know. It's called Financial Calculator, myfico.com, and they have calculators for mortgages, credit cards, refinance. And without further ado, actually, let's look at it right now. We're just gonna do a quick example. So this is their website, and they have everything here: credit card, mortgages, home equity loans, car buying, college. And I want to show you something really quick is the credit card. And let's say this compare the rates, they're 5% apart. They give you, if they tell you if the interest rate is different, what your balance is going to be. Let's say you'll have a $100 balance, 28% interest rate, which is very common. Fee zero, $200, you're going to spend $200 again. And then you just plan to pay $100 a month, right? So your balance is going to be about the maximum $1,500 at month year end. But let's look at here. they give you a table. So look at first, right? First year, nothing really crazy, 1,500 interest, about $32. But let's go to 40 years later. If you keep doing this, in 40 years, your balance is going to be $282 million, and you have interest about 6 million. So that's, of course, extreme example. Credit card company don't let you get there. They're gonna at some point gonna get you to pay. Okay. The other interesting things is some of you might have a very kind of lazy spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend. So this is, should my spouse work? And I think if you do have one, try to show them how much they're gonna earn, and how much expenses they're gonna have, and then compared to, oh, how much expenses they're going to have staying at home. So what they're doing is compare what they earn to extra expenses and see what's the net earning. If you're in debt, definitely ask your spouse to work, because that will really help. So that's the two examples that I have here, but this website, definitely go for it. It has all the decision trees for you. You can just play with it, and you probably find a lot of answers here. Okay, lastly, I want to point you to a podcast, blog, and YouTube. This blog was built last year by two very talented individuals. Just a disclosure here, now I'm actually part of it. I'm trying to help them to make the videos, and just starting at the beginning of this year. But this thing actually started last year, beginning of last year, and it's been a year, and uh, I would say that it's going to continue. So let's go into see some of the things that they have. And if you like to read, here's the blog. They have everything by date. You can click on it. You can read about it. Also has a link to the podcast. And then next, we're going to have, let me close this as well. If you don't have time to read, you can listen while you're on the road. You can go to their podcast, and here has all the episodes here. And lastly, if you like to see some pictures, photos, and know what they're about, you can go to their YouTube channel. And here's the YouTube channel. It's about 30 videos posted right now. It will continue to grow. And I actually have my contact information posted at the end. And if you guys have anything that you would like to hear, want to learn about, let us know. We welcome recommendations, suggestions. And if you don't like anything or think something is it's not as good, just let us know, and we will make a change, and hopefully, yeah, will be better in the future. And now with that, it concludes my presentations. And again, here's my contact information if you need anything. And after that, it's just few sources where I get the information, and also the resources that I just mentioned about. And here's the links. So I don't know how much, like, I believe we have like about 5 minutes. Again, I'm here to talk about is hopefully we can discuss about the that situation with you guys. If you guys have a couple questions, feel free to ask. And hopefully we have, yeah, I'm just gonna give my opinions on the questions. Now, do you know if there's anything that's being asked? Maybe I can try to help.
First, thank you, Samson, for taking us on such a deep dive into the world of debt. It was really informative and insightful. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself to ask. We do have a few more minutes before we conclude our time together, so feel free to ask anything that you're interested in. And we'll share all of these
Yeah.
resources with you. We'll share the PowerPoint with everyone that came today, so you can click on all those links and get more information about whichever topics were of interest to you all.
And just one thing, it's just the template I built it for this presentation. So it's not 100% kind of error proof, right? If you see anything, you use it and you say good suggestions, you can always bring it back to me. I can change it for you. So hopefully those are just things to help you kind of manage the debt, manage your budget, and of course, a lot of you are gonna have bright futures, right? Just one thing to mention, I went to college, graduated from college like about 20 years ago. So you guys actually are 20 years ahead of me in an advantage. That's so you guys have so much to learn and also build so much wealth way beyond what I can do. So good luck to you and in the future.
Thank you again, Samson, and thank you to all our participants for being here today and for coming to learn something new. Before you all log off, if you don't mind, please taking just a couple of minutes to fill out this feedback survey. I'm going to drop it in the chat. It helps us as we build more programming and workshops and bring new topics to you. So we would appreciate if you would fill that out. Thank you all so much. Looks like we have a lot of thank yous and looking
Thank you so
forward to
much.
using all those resources. Samson.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
thanks
I'll
for
send
putting
it
this
out
together.
after. Yes, yes, and thanks for the opportunity. And I think the few minutes I kind of want to just say a few things. I do think is sometimes you learn different things in your life, and um, you guys gonna choose different path, and that topic is gonna be sticking with you, right? In the future, you're gonna make decisions. Some decisions, like especially opening a business, you get a lot of risk. So really plan well, talk to professional, and because you don't want to get yourself into debt. Like you saw a lot of like inspiring news on YouTube or TV saying that people came out with a bankruptcy and become billionaire or millionaire again. It's just very rare. What you see is probably the 0.0001%. So really be careful about your financials. If you manage well, you're gonna do really, really well in the future. If you don't, um, and you're just gonna may suffer. So I hope you guys don't go that route, which I have been multiple times in my past. So if you do just be safe, right? Consider the risk and manage your income, knowing what your income is, knowing what your expenses is, see if you balance. And I'm sure all of you is gonna do really well in the future.
Thank you again, Samson. Have a great evening,
Yeah,
everyone. We'll
thank
see you
you.
at the next workshop.